Nobody really explains this part of dying. People talk about the pain, the treatments, the fear of the unknown. But what eats you alive long before the disease finishes its job is other people's expectations. The way they decide how you should feel, how you should behave, how you should speak about your own death. My name is Samantha. I am 28 years old. I have stage 4 breast cancer that has spread everywhere it should not be, and I am on my way out whether I am ready or not. You would think the hardest part would be the nausea, the exhaustion, the constant scans and blood tests. For me, that is not even close. The hardest part is being trapped inside everyone else's idea of what a good dying person should be. Apparently I am supposed to be endlessly brave, endlessly grateful, endlessly gentle with other people's feelings. I am supposed to smile through chemo, thank everyone for every small kindness, and accept help without complaint. I am supposed to see my boyfriend Grady as some kind of hero, because he stuck around when I got sick. That is what everyone else sees when they look at him. A saint. A devoted partner. The man who stayed. The man who quit his job to care for his dying girlfriend and their twin toddlers. They look at him and see a living, breathing Hallmark movie. They do not see what I see. Grady has always been an intense person. He walks into a room and fills it with his energy whether you want that or not. He is the type who thinks he always knows best, who believes that if he just works hard enough, plans thoroughly enough, controls tightly enough, nothing bad can really happen. When we bought this house 5 years ago, I wanted to feel proud. It was a big step. Our first home together. Fresh paint, bare walls, empty rooms full of possibility. Instead of sharing that feeling with me, Grady turned the whole thing into his personal project. He chose the flooring, the furniture layout, the color of the walls, the placement of every piece of art. Every decision had to go through his filter. He asked my opinion, but only so he could explain why his was better. Back then I told myself that he was just being responsible. That he cared too much to risk us making bad choices. I brushed off the little knot inside me that felt like a child holding the hand of an adult instead of a woman in a partnership. Then I got pregnant with the twins. That is when his controlling side shifted into overdrive. Anytime I stood up too fast, he was there, asking if I needed help. If I wanted to carry groceries, he insisted on doing it. If I reached for anything heavier than a pillow, he was there in seconds. He watched what I ate, what I drank, how long I walked. People said it was sweet. They called me lucky. They did not see how suffocating it is to be treated like a fragile glass ornament every single day. Even before the cancer came back, I felt like I was living in a house built to Grady specifications, following a schedule set by Grady rules, moving along a path Grady had designed for us. Then the first diagnosis came. Surgery, chemo, radiation. We got through it. Or at least everyone around us says we did. When the cancer returned and the scans showed it had moved into my lymph nodes and then beyond, everything changed again. At least for him. He quit his job without asking my opinion. No conversation. No discussion about money, about savings, about the future. One day he came home and announced that he had resigned because he was going to take care of me full time. He said it like he was delivering good news, like he expected me to be touched and grateful. I was not. I did not ask him to throw his career away. I did not ask him to turn his entire identity into my full-time caretaker. But that is exactly what he did. He turned my illness into his purpose. Every pill I need to take, he hands it to me before I remember it exists. Every appointment, he has already confirmed it, double-checked the time, printed the paperwork. If I sigh, he is there. If I roll over in bed, he is there. If I go to the bathroom and take 5 seconds longer than usual, he is knocking on the door to check whether I am alright. His parents, Douglas and Kay, absolutely adore this version of him. They talk about him with this glowing pride, as if they raised some kind of living angel. Their son, the selfless caretaker. Their boy, putting his life on hold to nurse his dying partner. They bring him casseroles and praise. They pat his shoulder and say they do not know how he does it. No one asks how it feels to be the person everyone is orbiting around like a project. No one asks how it feels to be watched every second of your day by a man whose entire sense of self has become wrapped around your illness. The twins, Chloe and Sophia, are almost 3 now. They are bright, wild, exhausting little people who can feel things long before they can explain them. Lately they spend more time over at Douglas and Kay house. On paper it makes sense. 2 toddlers and a terminally ill mother is a lot for one person to manage. Grady points out that his parents love having them, and that it gives him more time to focus on my care. Sometimes I wonder if they are over there, because it is easier for everyone if the girls do not have to watch their mother slowly fade away. At Douglas and Kay Place, they get story time and cookies and cartoons. Here, they get hushed voices, closed doors, and the constant heavy air of waiting. Out in the backyard, I can breathe a little. The sun feels soft on my skin, even though chemo has made me sensitive. I sit in a chair that used to be for summer barbecues and lazy Sunday mornings. Now it is where I go when I want a bit of space from the sound of Grady footsteps and the endless scraping of pill bottles. The doctors have been honest. They cannot fix this. They can only slow things down. They estimate months, not years. Every time I hear that, something inside me tightens. Not just because I am dying, but because there is something else inside me that has been rotting for years. People like to say that dying makes you honest. They act like pain and suffering automatically purify you, like you are supposed to turn into some glowing, wise version of yourself who speaks only truth and forgiveness. They do not mention that some truths get heavier the closer you get to the end. They do not mention that sometimes the secret in your chest feels worse than whatever is in your blood. While the girls are at Douglas and Kay for the weekend, I sit outside looking at the trees, at the fence, at the house I might never walk into again. Grady is inside. I can hear the blender. That means he is making one of those green drinks he insists will help my body fight back, even though my body lost that war a long time ago. I know exactly what he is doing. He is reading articles, watching videos about miracle diets, new supplements, experimental studies. He truly believes that if he tries hard enough, he can change the ending of this story. That is who he has always been. The fixer. The one who handles everything. The hero in his own mind. What he does not understand is that some of the things most broken about our life together have nothing to do with cancer. The truth is that even before the diagnosis, I had never been able to talk to him about what was happening inside my head. There was never any room for mess in his version of us. In his eyes, he was the perfect boyfriend, the dedicated provider, the loyal partner. In that story, my role was clear. I was supposed to be thankful. Thankful for the house. Thankful for his job. Thankful for how he cared. Thankful for his plans. Thankful for being protected. I am tired of gratitude. Tired of my feelings being something that have to squeeze themselves into the narrow space he leaves for them. Tired of trying to be this graceful, quiet woman who appreciates every sacrifice he makes while ignoring the parts of me that have been starving for years. I hear the back door slide open. He steps onto the patio with a glass in his hand. The drink looks like blended lawn clippings in a fancy cup. Once, his effort would have impressed me. Now all I see is how much he needs to feel like he is doing something. He sets the glass down on the small table beside me. He asks how I am feeling, using that gentle voice he reserves for me and the girls. As if there is a new answer waiting beyond the obvious. I am tired. I hurt. I am scared. I am angry. I am dying. Normally I say something vague like about the same or a bit tired. I have learned that if I say too much, he spins out into problem-solving mode. Today, something inside me cracks open. I start crying. Not the quiet tears I have practiced, the ones that make people say I am so strong. These tears are ugly. They come with gasps, with snot, with sounds that do not belong in the mouths of women who are expected to be dignified. He reaches for me instantly. He asks if I am in pain, if I am nauseous, if I need him to call the doctor. That is what he understands. Symptoms. Emergencies. Things he can respond to. I tell him I need to say something. He freezes. His arm stops halfway. I see his eyes narrow, not in anger yet, but in fear. I think on some level, he already knows that there is something he has not been allowed to see. The words pour out. I do not plan them. I do not shape them. I just open the door and let them spill. I tell him about how lonely I felt when we moved into this house. How he worked late nights, telling me it was all for us, while I ate dinner alone and listened to the clock tick. How I walked from room to room trying to feel like this place was really mine as well as his, but never fully managing it. I tell him about Jeremy. About the friend request that popped up one quiet evening. About the rush of seeing a familiar name from years ago. Jeremy, my ex from college. The one who had once made me laugh so hard I almost dropped my drink in a crowded bar. The one who used to draw little cartoons of our professors to make our classes bearable. The one who had always felt like chaos in human form. He messaged me just to say hello at first. That is what I tell Grady. I say it started small. Casual. Friendly. We talked about how long it had been, about what we had done with our lives, about work, about nothing in particular. He told me he was going through a divorce. That his wife had grown tired of his never-settled style. I told him about the house and about Grady late nights and about how everyone said I should be grateful. Jeremy remembered things about me that I had not thought about in a long time. He asked if I still painted. He quoted lines from my favorite crime documentary series. He joked about the weird snacks I used to eat during exams. It felt like he still saw the woman I had been before I became a full-time partner in someone else's life plan. Grady had stopped seeing me as a person with separate interests long ago. In his mind, I was part of the unit we made together. Samantha and Grady. Our house. Our future. Our kids. Our bills. Our chores. He took care of me the way he took care of everything. Efficiently. Completely. Thoroughly. There was not much room left over for curiosity. Jeremy asked questions. He listened instead of solving. He laughed instead of lecturing. That difference, as small as it might sound on paper, felt enormous when I was alone in this big house with no one to talk to until after 9 at night. I tell Grady that I met Jeremy for coffee. That I told myself it was innocent. That I showed up at the cafe and the second I saw him, all the pieces of myself I had tucked away years ago came rushing back and sat down beside me. We talked for hours that first time. About college. About our old friends. About movies and music. About his divorce. About how being an adult was not at all what we had thought it would be. I told him about how I felt invisible in my own home. About how I felt more like a piece in a game than a player. We met again. And again. Each time I told myself it was still friendly. Harmless. I left out the way my heart raced when I got a message from him. The way I lingered over what to wear. The way I checked my reflection twice instead of once. The physical side did not happen instantly. It built with every shared secret, every long look, every brush of a hand that lingered a little too long. The night it finally happened, it felt less like a decision and more like stepping over a line that had been drawn long ago and slowly pushed closer and closer to my feet. Those 6 months with Jeremy were like having a second life. In one life, I was Grady partner, living in a carefully managed home. In the other, I was just Sam again. I was someone who laughed loudly, who made bad jokes, who kissed in public, who stayed up too late talking about nothing important. Jeremy did not try to fix my problems. He did not ask how he could help me be more productive or healthier or more secure. He just enjoyed being with me. And I enjoyed being with someone who did not see me as a responsibility to manage. Then I missed a period. Then another. I did not tell Grady right away. I told myself it was stress, hormones, anything else. Deep down I knew. When I finally took the test and saw that second line, my stomach dropped in a way that had nothing to do with morning sickness. I did the math. The timing lined up more with Jeremy than with Grady. Not perfectly, but close. Too close to ignore. I told Jeremy first. I was shaking when I said the words. For a moment, he just stared at me, his face blank. Then he started talking about how he needed time, how his life was complicated, how this was a lot. He promised to call me later that week. He never did. Within a few days, he was gone. His messages stopped. His profiles vanished from my friend list. I was blocked on everything. It was as if our half year together had been wiped away with a single click. That is when I understood what kind of man he really was. All that charm and spontaneity and fun existed only when there were no consequences. The second responsibility appeared, he ran. He left me alone with twin lines on a test, a quiet house, and a boyfriend who had no idea any of this was happening. I told Grady about the pregnancy next. I left out the affair. I told him he would be a father, and he responded exactly the way you probably expect. Tears, laughter, promise after promise. He said he would work even harder for us. Said he would give the girls everything. Said he would never let anything bad happen to us. Now, sitting in the backyard years later, I tell him about all of it. The coffee. The 6 months. The timing of the pregnancy. The way I never got confirmation either way about who fathered our daughters, but lived with the possibility in my chest like a stone. He listens in total silence. No interruptions. No questions. His face goes blank in that terrifying way some people have when everything they know about their life is being broken down and rebuilt in front of them. When he finally speaks, his voice is flat. He says that I am telling him Chloe and Sophia might not be his. It is not a question. It is a fact spoken out loud. I nod. My throat burns from crying. I say I did not know for sure. I say the timing could fit him too. I say that once Jeremy disappeared, I did not know how to handle the truth, so I tried to bury it. He points out that I have carried that doubt for almost 3 years. That while he quit his job to focus entirely on caring for me and our daughters, while he woke up in the middle of the night for feedings, while he rocked them through fevers, while he signed forms, booked appointments, read books about parenting, I never told him any of this. He talks about how he reorganized his entire life around the idea of being their father. About how his plans, his sacrifices, his identity, were all built on that foundation. And I let him do it while holding the secret behind my back. I tell him that in every way that matters, they are his. That biology does not erase bedtime stories and kisses on skin knees. I say he is the only father they have ever known. I tell him that love matters more than blood. He does not argue with the idea. He just cannot apply it to himself. Grady is someone who needs solid ground under his feet. I have just turned that ground into water. He stands up, goes into the house without another word. I hear drawers opening and closing, footsteps moving through our shared space. When he comes back outside, he has his keys in his hand. He says he needs time. He says he is going to stay somewhere else while he thinks. He does not look at me when he says it. I tell him he cannot leave me. The words feel pathetic even as they leave my mouth, but I say them anyway. I tell him that I am dying and I need him. I tell him we can talk more, figure it out, go to therapy, do something. He answers that I should have considered that need before spending 6 months with another man behind his back. His voice is not loud. It is worse than loud. It is calm and final. Within an hour, he is gone. The driveway is empty. The house is quiet. The green drink he made for me sits untouched, the foam slowly separating from the liquid, just like the life we shared. The days after that blur together. Douglas and Kay come over more often. They bring the twins. Their faces are carefully blank, but I can feel the heaviness in the room. They do not interrogate me. They do not scold me. They look at me with a sadness that is almost worse. Like they are mourning the version of me they thought they knew. I call Grady. It goes to voicemail. I send messages that swing wildly in tone. Some are angry, accusing him of cruelty, of abandoning a dying woman and 2 little girls. Some are apologetic, begging him to come back, promising anything, swearing that love should be enough. He does not respond. A week later, a courier arrives with more envelopes stamped with legal letterheads. Inside, I find out that Grady has requested paternity tests for Chloe and Sophia. The papers are cold. Clinical. They contain long words and phrases that turn our messy human story into boxes to be checked and signatures to be written. The tests themselves are simple. Swabs inside cheeks. A quick clinic visit. A technician who does not make eye contact. The girls think it is a game. They open their mouths and laugh. They have no idea that these little bits of cotton may decide the course of their entire lives. Waiting for the results feels like standing on a bridge whose middle section might or might not be there. Every time my mind moves forward, it falls into the gap, Some days I convince myself that the girls are his. I remember nights with him. I count backwards, forwards. I twist the dates until they almost line up the way I want. Other days I am certain they are not. I remember Jeremy's eyes, his smile, the way Chloe laughs just like he did. I stare at Sophia's face trying to see Grady in her chin or her nose and come up empty. When the envelope arrives, I cannot open it. My hands shake too much. Douglas does it for me because Kate cannot bear to. I watch his face while he reads. His expression falls. That is all I need. The girls are not Grady's biological daughters. He raised them from the moment they came into the world. He cut their umbilical cords. He held them in his arms while the nurses cleaned them. He stayed up through the night while I slept. He learned how to change tiny diapers with hands that were more used to typing on keyboards and carrying boxes. And yet, on paper, he is a stranger to them now. I call him again. Straight to voicemail. I leave messages telling him that the results do not erase the last years. I tell him that the girls love him. That he loves them. That who provided the sperm does not need to matter this much. My phone remains silent. A few days later, Douglas tells me that Grady came to the house while I was at a medical appointment. He came with boxes and left with clothes and books and personal things. He did not stay long. He left a message with his father instead of with me. Grady is going to remove his name from the birth certificates. He has contacted a lawyer about disclaiming legal paternity. He will, however, keep paying the mortgage until he can arrange for his life insurance to cover the house for the girls after I am gone. He will make sure the property goes to them eventually, so they have somewhere to come back to if they ever want. It is thoughtful and practical. It is more generous than I probably deserve. It is also an unmistakable sign that he is building a future that does not include me or them in any active way. I start trying to track Jeremy down. I feel a sick mix of anger, panic, and cold responsibility. If he is their biological father, he deserves to at least know that his daughters exist. And if I am running out of time, someone has to be there for them long term. I create new social media profiles. I search his name in every combination I can think of. I send messages to old friends and vague acquaintances from college. I reach out to his ex-wife, leaving a hesitant message explaining who I am. Nothing. Either he is hiding very well, or he simply does not want to be found. The man who once filled my phone with messages and my days with laughter has disappeared completely when permanence came knocking. My sister Lauren flies in from Australia. She leaves behind her husband, her job, and her own children for a while to come help me piece together some kind of future for my girls. She tries to be kind, but I have known her my whole life. I see the judgment in her eyes, even when she is trying to bury it. She liked Grady. She always said he was stable, considerate, maybe a little intense, but in a good way. She teased me that I had lucked out. Now she is watching the aftermath of my choices, watching the father figure vanish and the biological father refuse to step up. Lauren tells me she can understand, in a grim way, why Grady made the decision he did. She says he must be shattered. She also says that he is deeply hurt, and people in that much pain sometimes do drastic things to protect themselves. Her words do not excuse him. They also do not paint me as an innocent victim. That is a new feeling for me, and I do not like it. Social services gets involved. Not in a threatening, handcuffs way. In a serious, paperwork, options way. A caseworker comes to the house. She takes notes. She talks softly. She has that look that people get when they are trying to be professional, but also cannot help feeling sorry for the family in front of them. She explains that we have to figure out a legal guardian for Chloe and Sophia for after I am gone. Lauren is one option. She could take them to Australia, where they would have cousins and a stable home. That would mean leaving the country they were born in, leaving everything familiar, and starting over on the other side of the world with family they barely know. Another option would be to track down Jeremy and try to involve him. But given his complete disappearance the moment responsibility appeared, the caseworker and I both know that this path is more theory than reality. There is also Douglas and Kay, but they are in their 70s. They are loving grandparents, but toddlers are hard on young bodies, let alone older ones. We all know they cannot realistically raise 2 small children to adulthood. I ask about Grady. The caseworker looks genuinely sad as she tells me that according to his lawyer, he does not want ongoing parental responsibilities. He has chosen to step away. I hate the way those words feel in my mouth. He has chosen to step away. From me. From them. From the life we built. Yes, I broke it. But he is the one walking away from the broken pieces, leaving me sitting among them. Friends reach out when they hear that Grady is no longer living with us. Some offer condolences. Some choose careful silence. When I try to tell my side, I catch myself skewing details. I emphasize that he left while I am dying, that he is refusing to see the girls, that he is removing his name from their documents. I conveniently shrink the affair into something short. I gloss over the doubt about their paternity that I held for years. I present myself as someone who made a mistake, not someone who lived in that mistake for half a year and then hid it for 3 more. I expect people to be angry on my behalf. When their responses are mixed, it stings. One friend says she cannot imagine how shattered he must feel. Another says she feels bad for everyone involved, including him. A third gently reminds me that finding out your children are not really yours would break anyone. For the first time, I start to see how this story looks from the outside. To me, Grady is the man who left me alone to die. To many others, he is the man who discovered that his dying girlfriend had been lying about their life in the most fundamental way for years. The cancer keeps doing its job while all this unfolds. My energy drops further. Simple tasks become ordeals. I nap more. I eat less. The girls climb into my bed and stroke my arm, sensing that something is very wrong, even if they do not have words for it. They ask about Daddy. Chloe especially clings to his absence. She does not understand why he no longer comes through the door at night, why he is not at the breakfast table, why he does not scoop her up after a fall. Every time she asks where he is, something in me breaks. I could tell her that he is busy, that he is working, that he will come by soon. That feels like a fresh layer of lies on top of the pile that got us here. I start saying that Daddy needed to go away for a while, that he still loves her, that grown-up problems are sometimes confusing and unfair. The house feels like a museum. Every object is a memory. The kitchen table where we talked about baby names. The hallway where Grady paced with crying infants bouncing against his chest. The couch where I once fell asleep against his shoulder while he watched yet another documentary about home improvement. The bedroom that was ours, then mine and his caregiving station, now feels like a waiting room for the end. In the girls' room, the walls are painted soft colors. There are stickers of stars and flowers. The small beds are covered with blankets that Grady picked out because he thought they would make the girls smile. Each time I stand in that doorway, I feel the weight of what I have done. My choices did not just hurt me and him. They rippled outward into these tiny lives who had no say in any of it. Eventually, a decision has to be made about their future. My doctors are plain. I do not have as long as we once hoped. Lauren has to return to her own life at some point. Douglas and Kay are exhausted. The plan we settle on is simple and brutal. Lauren will take the girls back to Australia. There, they will have a stable home, a present caregiver, a wider support system. They will have cousins and aunts and uncles. They will not have their father, biological or otherwise. They will grow up with a story about their mother that may or may not include the ugliest parts of what I have done. In my final weeks, I spend as much time with them as my body allows. We read books. We watch cartoons. We have tea parties on the floor. I try to pour as much love into them as possible, knowing it has to last their whole lives because I will not be there to top it up later. At night, when they are asleep, I lie in the dark and examine the wreckage of my life. I trace every line back to where it began. To the first message from Jeremy. To the loneliness in this house. To the way I let myself believe that excitement is more important than loyalty, that feeling alive is more important than being honest, that my hunger for something new justified what I did to the people who trusted me. I think about Grady. About the years he gave me. The ways he stepped up. The ways he smothered me. The ways I resented him instead of talking to him. The ways I lied to him. The way he left. The last news I hear about him comes from Douglas. He tells me he saw Grady at the grocery store. He says his son looks healthier than he has in a long time, that he seems calmer, lighter, as if some heavy weight has been removed from his shoulders. Part of me hates him for that. Part of me envies him. Another part understands that he could not keep living in the prison my choices built around him. As the end comes closer, my body gives up on pretending. Breathing is harder. Pain is sharper. The world shrinks to my bedroom, my bed, the faces of the people still willing to sit beside me. The girls spin in and out of my awareness. Some days I am strong enough to hold them. Other days they wave from the doorway while Lauren gently steers them away. I do not know which memories of me will stick in their minds. The mother who tucked them in and sang badly off-key lullabies, or the pale figure in bed surrounded by pill bottles and hushed voices. Grady is not there. He does not come back for a final conversation, for a goodbye, for closure. I keep waiting for him to walk through the door, to sit in the chair by my bed, to take my hand and let me apologize one last time to his face. That moment never arrives. He chose to walk away when he heard the truth, and he keeps walking. In the quiet spaces, I finally admit to myself that as much as his leaving hurt, it was not unjust. I betrayed him in the deepest way a partner can. I involved another man in something sacred without his knowledge. I let him build his identity around a role that might never have truly belonged to him. I took his choices away. For someone like Grady, who values control and truth and planning, that must have been unbearable. He did not leave because I got sick. He cared for me faithfully through that. He did not leave because our life was hard. He stuck with me through all kinds of stress. He left because I turned the ground under his feet into quicksand and then begged him not to drown. As I lie here, catching each breath like it might be the last, I understand something that I did not when all this began. The cancer is going to kill my body. But the real damage started far earlier, when I decided that my desire for excitement mattered more than the commitments I had made. When I decided my need to feel seen justified lying. When I decided that my secret happiness was more important than anyone else's pain. My daughters will grow up far away, in a land of new accents and different holidays. They will build a life that does not include the father who rocked them at 3 a.m, or the mother who made the choices that drove him away. Maybe they will be alright. Maybe they will be better off than if Grady had stayed out of obligation and resentment. But I will die knowing that the biggest wound in their lives began with me. I wanted to feel alive. I wanted to feel desired. I wanted something that felt like it belonged only to me in a world where everything seemed controlled by someone else. Instead, I tore apart the one person who had been willing to face every hard thing with me and shattered the family we had started. The disease will write the final line of my story. But the terrible truth is that the deepest part of this ending was my own hand. And as much as it hurts to admit it, the man who once promised never to leave was right to turn away from the fire I started, even if that means I die without his hand in mine.